audience. I'm at school right now. Okay, so, these are my note cards. All right. The errors of overturning Roe v. Wade and the regression that is the abortion bans that followed. Today, I will persuade you to believe abortion is a reproductive right that should be guaranteed to the women of the United States, and that abortion bans presently widespread are regressive and based on an errorful decision, which was the overturning of Roe v. Wade. As a young woman growing up in the United States, I ask you to look at me and think about the questions I'm about to ask. Why should my once guaranteed reproductive rights be taken from me now? Why, in the United States, the country of individual freedom, should someone else's religion trump my right to reproductive health care? And finally, I ask you, why should the state I live in depict my worthiness to choose what's best for my future? While to many the topic I'm referring to with these questions may just seem like a controversial political battle between pro-life and pro-choice, the errors made while overturning Roe v. Wade and the regressive abortion bans that followed are undeniable. The overturning of Roe v. Wade contradicted many values that the United States was built on. Religious pro-life protesters' influence on the government's decision in their ruling has violated the First Amendment and which alludes to the separation of church and state. Leaving abortion rights up to the states resulted in immediate abortion bans and restrictions causing women little to no access. Once preventable reproductive traumas like pregnancy following rape, unexpected pregnancy and poverty, teenage pregnancy, maternal death, and stillbirths are now unavoidable to women in restricting states. This once avoidable trauma being inflicted on women all over the United States and the errors our government made in the process of overturning Roe v. Wade cannot be overlooked, and we cannot become submissive to it. The first thing I'd like to discuss is the errors committed by the U.S. government concerning the topic of abortion. Number one is a lack of separation of church and state, like I mentioned. The abortion bans resulted there was a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is a result from religious pro-life protests, which contradicts the First Amendment and its allusion to the separation of church and state, like I mentioned. The second thing is contradiction of what's considered constitutional. In 1973, when the Supreme Court decided on Roe v. Wade, which ruled that the Constitution of the United States would defend a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction, which I get from author Napolitano and his website. Yet, with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, many state courts have ruled that abortion is unconstitutional. Why, even when it used to be considered a constitutional liberty, is abortion now considered unconstitutional? Our government continues to contradict itself over abortion being constitutional. The third thing I'd like to talk about is extremist rulings concerning pro-life states. Certain states, for example, Alabama, has extreme rules concerning abortion. Like, there's no exception for rape or incest, and performing an abortion could be up to a felony, which I get from also Napolitano and his website. Most widespread reasons for abortion. Pregnancy following rape. As of 2024, the 14 states with abortion bans have had an estimated 65,565 pregnancies from rape. If any of these girls and women received in-state abortions legally. This data suggests that the scarcely available rape exemptions fail to provide access to abortion for survivors, which I get from TAN and their website. My next reason for abortion is unexpected pregnancy and poverty and teenage pregnancy. While a financially stable, wealthy woman may be able to travel to a pro-choice state or pay the expensive price for abortion pill, that might not be the case for women in poverty. This inequality leads to greater poverty, more children in foster care, and just more numbers of poverty in general, which I get that information from Foster and their website. On the topic of teen pregnancy, according to the 2001 teenage pregnancy statistics, around 350,000 teens become pregnant in the United States every year. Reportedly, 82% of these pregnancies are unintended. Approximately 55% of these pregnancies are birthed, 14% are miscarried, and 31% are aborted. From this data, we conclude around 87,885 teens received abortions. I get these statistics from American Civil Liberties Union. Taking this data and applying it to today's restrictions and bans, I ask you, why should these young women not have the right to decide what's best for their future. The next thing I'd like to talk about for the most widespread reasons for abortion is maternal death and stillbirths. I'd like to talk about one woman on this topic, which is Kate Cox. She's a married woman living in the state of Texas, and she was denied an abortion by the Texas Supreme Court despite receiving a fatal fetal diagnosis and news that carrying her pregnancy to term would have serious risk to her health and future fertility, which I get from Center of Reproduction Rights. So why is defending reproductive rights of women so important? The biggest point I'd like to make is women fought and protested for their right to reproductive freedom all through the 60s, which, as we know, was not a very sexually accepting time. Women dedicated themselves fighting for reproductive rights of themselves and of the women in the generations to come. We cannot go back on the progress that these women dedicated themselves to, which I get from Bernhardt and their website. In this country, when laws are placed causing regression for women, we fight for our rights causing progression. Women have been fighting for their rights since the United States was born. Why now would we stop? Which I get from Center for Reproductive Rights. In wrapping up my speech, I want you to refer back to the questions I asked you at the beginning. Do you have a different perspective? Have you learned something about the pro-choice movement you may have overlooked in the past? In conclusion, many errors were made in the overturning of Roe v. Wade, causing a regression that is the abortion bans have followed. The United States government made contradictions to themselves and to the Constitution when all while committing a huge disservice to the women of the country. With abortion now being left to the states, unjust decisions are being made by state courts giving women little to no access to the reproductive rights. Once preventable reproductive traumas like the ones I discussed are now unavoidable to women in restricting states. The regressional decision to revoke women's reproductive rights and the undeniable errors that the government committed while overturning Roe v. Wade cannot be overlooked, and we cannot be complacent. Thank you.